Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Jana.
I wanted to welcome everybody back to the Remarkable Single Moms Summit. I'm here today with Jennifer Norman, and she is the founder and chief human beauty officer. Um, I said that wrong. Founder and chief of Humanist
I
Beauty.
say Chief Human Officer instead of
Okay.
Chief Executive Officer because it's a little bit friendlier,
Yes, I love it.
but it's a mouthful.
Okay, well, I'm not doing a very good job introducing you. So maybe you could tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
I'd be happy to. Hello, everybody. My name, as Jana mentioned, is Jennifer Norman, and I am the founder and chief human officer of the Human Beauty Movement, which is also the company that makes Humanist Beauty skincare. And I am a relatively new entrepreneur in the area, but I also happen to be a single mom, hence why I'm here, right, Jana?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and so I'll just kind of let everybody know that you joined me so graciously on our first summit, and we had such a good conversation. And I think what I really love about you and your experience and your story is just you are a single mom, and you left an established career to go do something that you really believed in and kind of
Mhm.
started again. And so I think I really appreciate your courage and your journey, your single mom journey. So I'm so excited to have you back.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And I was I was so inspired by you as well for also taking that leap and doing something that you're passionate about. And I think that following your passions, following your dreams, it can be scary. It can feel overwhelming, especially at a time like we're in right now.
Yeah.
But knowing that there is community and the fact that you are helping so many people with your messages and what you're doing here to feel that they have a safe place for these kinds of conversations and for learning and for really kind of
Mhm.
diving into themselves and learning a little bit more about themselves, I think is such a great thing. And I love being part of it. I love being part of the conversation and to be able to just kind of help by maybe sharing my story. I'm not really one that likes to give advice. I never really like to receive advice. It's almost like, the things that I
Yeah.
like to kind of cherry pick and take what suits me. And I hope that, perhaps that is the same thing, that maybe there's something to glean from my story and my journey that might help to inspire or, kind of touch with a bit of relevance somebody else that might be listening. And if I can help one person, then that makes all the difference to me. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you did in our last interview, so I'm excited about this one.
yeah.
So, you and I were just talking off camera.
Mhm.
I did a survey after our first summit, and I just asked
Mm,
people like what they're most challenged with at this
mm,
time. And what came back was kind of the number one answer was being overwhelmed. And
mhm.
so that's also kind of the reason I reached out to you as a single mom,
Yeah.
and as an entrepreneur, and that's a really common feeling, I think. And you and I were chatting about, how we get into this position of feeling overwhelmed. And one of the ways
Mhm.
is that as single moms, we can find ourselves in a position of comparing our lives, maybe to
Yeah.
even what our lives used to be. I used to have this, I used to have this relationship, I used to have this like lifestyle or whatever, and now it's very different. Or I'm comparing myself, and I
Mhm.
do it absolutely, to friends who have what seem like amazing lives. I'm like, oh, maybe if I wasn't single, I could also have a life like that. Or and then you start to feel overwhelmed a little bit. And so,
For
I talked about
sure.
that kind of perspective and how that can add to feeling overwhelmed.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the first thing for us all to realize is that we wouldn't be human if we didn't feel overwhelmed
Mm,
at any time in our lives. I feel like, challenges are there for growth, discomfort, and friction, and animosity in life is going to happen, and we have to kind of take that for what it is. And so those feelings of overwhelmingness or stress, or that, life is really kind of bombarding us, is completely normal. And it's not that there's anything wrong with any of us for feeling that way. And the thing that we tend to do when we feel overwhelmed is beat ourselves up for feeling overwhelmed, and then that makes us feel even more
Yeah.
overwhelmed and
Yeah.
stressed, and it tends to snowball. And so the first thing is to, recognize that it's completely normal. There's nothing wrong with you for feeling this sense of overwhelmingness, whether you're a single mom or not, whether you're a child in school and going to a test, or whether you're, a man who's facing a layoff. If everybody feels a sense of overwhelmingness. And I think that now with COVID and all of the changes in our lifestyle that have been unprecedented, have left us all feeling a bit of this sense of overwhelm, because it's just so unknown.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of changes that we've had to do to adjust, not even withstanding normal life phases, but something where we're all challenged with such adversity all at once.
Yeah.
And at least perhaps there is a little bit of respite knowing that we're all in it together to a certain
Right.
degree.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the things that definitely compounds this, and a lot of it is very internalized, it's very individual, but we do tend to compare ourselves, as you were mentioning, to our former selves, and
Mhm.
to what we thought that our lives should be like. And then of course we compare ourselves to everybody else around us. And when we do that, I think that it was Theodore Roosevelt that said comparison is the thief of joy, right?
Yeah.
And it definitely is true, because certainly anybody who is an aspiring career person, or somebody with vision and goals, is going to set what they think that their future state is going to be like.
Right.
And a lot of, as we're going through life, we say, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to achieve this. And if it doesn't happen in the time period, time is also a thief of joy. But if those things don't happen, or if there's course correction that happens along the way, feeling bad about yourselves, and that self-talk that women tend to do,
We're so good
about
at
I'm
it.
no good, I'm a failure, I've done, my I'm not a great mom, I'm not a great. We tend to kind of pile it onto ourselves, as far as just feeling like we're supposed to be super women that can
Yeah.
just do everything and anything that comes our way, because that's the way that we thought that we could be when we were younger, or that's the way that other women seem to be handling things. But they don't have our lives, do they? They
Yeah.
don't have a lot of the adversities that you're going through. And so I think that the first thing is, normalizing your self talk, and really trying to develop those very minute habits. They talk about taking like little bites out of bravery, and little bites
Mhm.
out of courage, and little bites, just like those step by steps, individual small habits that you can do, that get you out of a place of low frequency, which is
Yeah.
that place where you're kind of in maybe a spiral of depression, or just feeling bad about yourself and overwhelmed. And it really takes your mind off of being able to focus on productivity and positivity and good things. It's kind of like,
Right.
let's try to nip that in the bud as quickly as we can, and get to a place where we feel good about ourselves, that we know that we have work to do, as anybody does. And
Yeah.
that, there is a difference between happiness and being content. Like, I believe, as we had discussed in our last summit call, that everybody has innate happiness. It's uncovering it and recognizing you are a happy person. And that doesn't mean that you have to be complacent, or think, oh, I have no more work to do, and just kind of sit on your laurels and be like, well, whatever is. We are people who strive to be better. We strive to
Right.
innovate. We strive to explore. We want more out of life, which leads to that discontent and that dissatisfaction, which is normal. That's how
Yeah.
we grow. That's how we learn. That's how we evolve. That's how we help other people, by going through experiences and continuing to kind of challenge ourselves. And so, it's about leaning into that discomfort and being okay with it for a period of time, even though it might feel completely awful
Yeah.
and terrible. One of the things that I did earlier on in life, I had been like a long time ago. I was a gymnast, and I remember when
Oh,
I would learn. Yeah, when I was younger, I was like, tumbling and doing things on the bars, and those things are terrifying, but
yeah.
to a child, it's like you don't know fear like you know fear as an adult.
Right.
And I just remember, being coached and saying, like, getting on a balance beam and being able to fall off, and there's a cushion there, and that's how you practice, and that's how you adjust and you grow. And to a point, it's like, okay, you can do that cartwheel on, or, that somersault on the balance beam with, your harnesses and with your coach there. And then all of a sudden the coach is going to leave and he says, all right, now do it by yourself. And you're like, I better do it by myself because my coach is there watching me and I'm going to do it.
Right.
And so you take that leap of faith, you do it. And if you fall, it's okay. You have to be okay with failing. It's
Yeah.
kind of like that's part of the process. You'll never get better unless you completely fall on your face and fail. I have a friend who actually told me that, her son is on an ice hockey team. And the first thing that they do is they teach the kids how to fall. How
Yeah.
do you fall correctly? Because then you're not afraid to fall anymore. And that you kind of, will throw yourself into, like, wholeheartedly into something, not being afraid to fail and not being afraid to fall.
Oh,
And so
that's
one of the
great.
things that I did later in life, I said to myself, you know what? Maybe I'm getting to a place where I have started to, to get too fearful. And so I started doing like the whole adrenaline junkie thing. Started cliff diving. I
Oh,
actually
that's great.
went and jumped out of a plane. And it's kind of like, what can I do to get over this sense of fear? And I
Yeah.
totally encourage that for anybody. It's like, what do you think is like your greatest fear? Like what would you be terrified of? Can you do that? And will that help you feel like now I can conquer anything? If I can jump out of a plane, if I can jump off a cliff, if I can do this, even if it's like, if I was afraid to cold call that person who I
Yeah.
was afraid to network with, what would happen if you did? Just go and do it. Just like see what happens and see how much growth you feel and how that kind of gets you over maybe that subtle hump of feeling overwhelmed at the beginning and that you were too timid or too scared or too, feeling too insular to kind of reach out and break free. I feel like all of us need to have those periodic moments once in or several times in our lives, maybe once a year or what have you, to just kind of do something a little bit reckless.
Wow. Oh, that's
And
fantastic.
yeah, and that certainly helped me with a sense of overwhelmingness that I had felt a few times in my life.
Yeah.
Um, just to be like, you know what, now I can do anything. I feel like if I can do that, I can do anything. And it just gives you that boost of self confidence that perhaps you
Yeah.
need and inject. And it doesn't have to be as crazy as jumping out of a plane, of course, especially nowadays. But maybe it is. Maybe it's just something different. Maybe it's saying hi to that cute next door neighbor, or whatever it is. Just something completely outside your comfort zone. Just kind of do it, and then see how much more self-confidence and courage you feel, even if it means that you fail, even if it means you get rejected. That,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that you're any less of a person. It just means that, it takes a little bit more time to get to that yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I know that you were also asking about, like, gosh, starting my own company and, like, what in the world was I thinking? And and that by itself takes a little bit of, of courageousness as well. And I will say that for me, there was no other choice. I got to a place in my own kind of self observation and self awareness, and a lot of what I will say is that also being aware of oneself is not the same as comparing yourself to another person either.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
it's kind of like knowing what your strengths and what your weaknesses are, or where your opportunities for growth are, is considered self-awareness, and that's positive. When you compare yourself to somebody else and use that as a beacon of inspiration or motivation, that's also positive. But if you find that your first inclination is to say, gosh, that person is doing so much better than I am,
Yeah.
or gosh, I should be in that place, or that person got promoted and I did, that's where that self talk, you can kind of recognize it right away that you've got to kind of break yourself out of.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was self-aware enough to know that within the career that I was, there was dissonance in what my beliefs were and the way that I was hoping to kind of operate in my life and what my life's purpose was. And so once you kind of identify your purpose and what your soul is hungry for, there's really no stopping you.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you don't look at the things that can go wrong. You have to be aware of them so that you can plan for them and adjust and all of those things. But it becomes something where you are so motivated, you are so inspired to do that and to kind of change the world for the better with what your mission is, that it becomes kind of a no-brainer. And
Right.
I would encourage a lot of other people to do that too if they feel like they're stuck and that
Mhm.
gets to that place of complacency or lack of growth. If you're feeling that and you're itching to do something different, if you're overwhelmed by the ennui of your today, of where that is, it's not so much a sign of overwhelm or feeling kind of like crushed. It's more of you trying to break out of that eggshell and bloom and blossom. You're like that rosebud that just needs to bloom and grow and be in the right environment for you to be able to do that and to shine. And so yeah, for me, I recognize that being an employee for somebody else and just kind of going through the motions really wasn't as fulfilling. I love the industry. I love beauty. I love everything that it stands for. I love the artistry. And there are so many aspects of the industry that were within my passion points. But the way of going about it, I felt was something that I really wanted to take ownership of.
Yeah.
And so I developed the human beauty movement because I was seeing a need for less toxicity in the beauty industry. And by toxicity, I mean toxicity of ingredients,
Hmm.
toxicity of what the packaging waste is doing to our environment, toxicity of the messaging to women and telling them that they're not good enough unless they buy a certain product or look a certain way or are a certain skin tone or are a certain kind of class, that you're not beautiful. So I wanted to eradicate that kind of manipulated and toxic kind of nature and strip that away and develop something that was pure and ethical and had more integrity. And that's really what was born out of the human beauty movement, so that it's all about inclusivity and diversity appreciation. It's about wellness from like inside out and from just like that idea of individual self-love, self-talk, self-confidence, self-esteem, because that's really the projection of beauty, that all of the other stuff that we put on the outside is just window dressing and it's fun and it's supposed to be there for your enjoyment and not to stress
Right.
you out and make you feel bad. It's really about you being able to showcase and to kind of manifest the you that you want to kind of show to the world. Um, and so yeah, that's really the philosophy. And in order to kind of go through all of that, I wanted to make sure that I was doing things correctly. And so there were things like becoming a B corporation.
Yes.
There are things like becoming EWG verified. Certain things that I felt were important to be touch points for people to really kind of embrace and see, oh, okay, now that I see that it's endorsed by and that she's living and abiding by certain certification rules, this really is a company that I can get behind. This
Yeah.
is somebody that I feel is really not out there just for my dollars. It's somebody that really wants to make a difference.
Yeah. I find it so interesting that we're talking about overwhelm because I do think, as a woman, that you're always comparing your body or your like.
Mhm.
I mentioned I didn't have time to do my hair today, like, right? I'm like, oh my God,
And the
I'm just
first thing that I said is
comparing.
your hair. I was thinking as soon as your beautiful, stunning vision came up on the screen, I was like, her hair looks gorgeous. And see,
Oh,
this is again the self-talk that you
right?
told yourself. And I think that if we did a poll, everybody would be like, "Gosh, Jana's hair looks pretty styling right now." So
But
there you
yeah,
go.
thank you. But so, and the whole tie to like feeling overwhelmed, I've put on a couple pounds through COVID and, had my gym's closed. So I can't get to the gym and work out or whatever. So you compare yourself and how you
Yeah.
look to
Yeah.
other women as well. And I really love the essence of the human beauty movement, because it is about being yourself and from within,
Yeah.
and not comparing yourself to others. Very,
Exactly,
very wise.
exactly. It's really kind of starting from where you are right in the moment.
Yeah.
And it isn't, again, like I said, it's not about complacency. It's not about not, like, you know, this is me. And especially if there are elements of unwellness within your life,
Yeah.
it's kind of just being self-aware of those. If you know that your diet isn't where it needs to be, or if you know that the amount of exercise that you're getting is not up, not as ideal. It's like, again, don't beat yourself up for it. It's just like, start where you are.
Yeah.
And even if you get to a point because of COVID where your gym is closed, or it's just easier to make something fried or grab something fried, then it's like these things happen. But the more that you can kind of edge towards healthfulness, and what we eat and what we surround ourselves with do have an impact on our
Right.
psyches, certainly. It's a whole big feedback loop. And so, yeah, if there, like, just those small things that we can do to kind of help to lift our psyches up and to lift our mood, whether it's like getting outside, doing like a walk, or doing some quick breathing exercises, which help to kind of oxygenate your brain.
Yeah.
Those little tiny things that are so small and a little bit easier to incorporate without feeling like you have to dedicate a whole half hour, or time that you feel that you don't have in your
Yeah.
day, because a lot of us are under time pressure, you know homeschooling and doing everything
Yeah.
else that we want to do and need to do during the day. Is recognizing that sometimes you got to set an alarm and take that time for yourself and almost force yourself to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah. I've heard, I think, I can't remember, and I want to say maybe it's a Tony Robbins thing, but like, if you always only ever did what you felt like doing, you would just never get anything done.
It's
Because I
true.
think, and I do think it was Tony, because he has this pool that he jumps in every day and it's super cold. And he goes, "Do you think I want to do that every day? I don't do that every day. I do it because I know it's good for me and it trains my brain to just get things done." And so,
Yep.
yeah, so like you're saying, just
Yep.
do it,
I'm a
even if
big
you don't
proponent
feel
of
like it.
Mel Robbins and her 5-second rule. I'm sure
Yeah.
that almost everybody here has probably heard about that already because it's been out there for a while, but it's just like count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Don't think about it. Just like when I jumped out of a plane, it's like the more that you think about it, the more you're going to paralyze yourself or tell yourself that this is not a very smart thing to do, or
Right.
this is not something that you want to do. You just got to jump in with both feet and just do it, whether it's like getting out of bed in the morning or deciding to jump in a cold pool and swim. It takes a little bit of recognizing that no grit, no pearl.
Yeah. Yeah. So what does your day look like, Jennifer? Like, you're a busy mom and you have a business and you have lots going on.
Yeah.
So how do you, maybe on like on a daily basis, manage all of these
Yeah.
things?
Yeah, one thing that I have learned, about myself is that I need to prioritize sleep as much as I can.
Okay.
For those of you who may have heard from the last summit, I have a disabled son at home. He's actually on life support, and so he lives on a ventilator. He's G-tube fed. He's non-mobile and non-verbal, and so he needs pretty much 24-hour care. I'm blessed with having home nurses who help me stay sane during the day. And so I'm able to work and do other things without feeling like I have to worry about his care. God bless. I've been blessed with these angels. But nighttime is me time. I take care of him overnight. And so I get up several times during the night in order to suction him, change his diaper, reposition him, make sure that he's okay. Sometimes alarms are going off where he's losing oxygen. And so my parasympathetic nervous system is always on
Overdrive.
at
Imagine.
nighttime. And so what happens is his home nurse actually comes at 6:30 in the morning. I have typically already gotten up and done some morning routine with him. And then when she actually arrives and we do our kind of shift transition and I tell her how his overnight went, I hop back into bed.
Oh,
And
good.
that's
Yeah.
probably the time where I get the deepest sleep because I
Okay.
feel like he's being taken care
Yeah.
of. And that gives me like at least maybe 1 or 2 hours just to fall into REM sleep, strangely
Yeah.
enough. And so that might be a bit different from the rest of the folks listening. Some people who may have special needs kids or other situations, newborn babies at home, it's like having a newborn baby for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of the same situation. And so I do try to get a chunk of sleep, which, sometimes I won't, and I'll get online and I'll check my email, which is the worst thing to do, but I'm trying to break myself of that habit
Yeah.
as well. But then, I usually will get up, take care of the dog, get my cup of coffee, do my morning meditation and just my sense of gratitude. I like to do that in the quiet of the morning time. And then I plow into work. And so by the time that I do that, and it can be anything from putting together new product launches, it could be working on press releases or PR, it could be working on the website or some blog posts. It differs depending on what the calls are for the
Yeah.
day. It could be speaking engagements, things like that. But and then it's also kind of like also working on new business plans for things that I have coming up which are exciting. So yeah, I try to I tend to be more of a night person, and so I tend to get to bed a bit later, and then of course am not really sleeping entirely during the night.
Yeah.
So
No.
so that's typically my day. I've become very favorable to Instacart and not trying to get out to shop as much for COVID.
Yeah.
My son is immunocompromised, so we have to stay as safe as possible so that we don't bring anything into his surroundings. Luckily, none of us have
Absolutely.
gotten any viruses or anything like that, and so we're hoping to keep it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have a lot of overwhelm, and it sounds like prioritizing sleep and just taking that time in the morning for yourself to just
Yeah,
really, yeah.
yeah. I have been finding that just like that eternal gratitude has really helped me to not feel overwhelmed and understanding that perhaps I've been through the worst. Perhaps there have been times in my life in my past that have really tested me and have gotten me to the place where I was actually diagnosed with PTSD
Yeah.
a while back because it was truly overwhelming for my system and it went into meltdown at a period of time. And so recognizing that I've kind of come out of that place, that was a pretty dark and horrible place, and I survived. And and I have so much to be blessed and grateful for, and I feel that I've got community around me, however distant we are, that life is good. That even with as bad as it can be, I always thank the Lord that I've got a roof over my head. I've got people who love me. I have a silly dog that sleeps with me every night, and so I have my own personal health. So there are things that I am truly eternally grateful for. And then satisfied, I try to work actively towards. Like I'm always trying to work for a cure for my son. That's like priority number one. I work to make sure that with my business, I don't compare. I hear the news all the time, like, oh, this person just launched last
I
year and they've
know.
already sold to another big company and all that. And I think to myself, that's great for them. I'm in a different place. I need to go at a different timeline because of my situation, and that is okay.
Yeah.
And being okay with that is step number one towards realizing that a lot of the overwhelm is truly here. It's something that we do to ourselves. It's not
Yeah.
really something that other people do to us, but being able to kind of bide your time and go at your pace, and recognizing that there will be time, and not creating artificial deadlines when they're not necessary,
Yeah.
is okay, or even pushing back on deadlines that others might give to you if you need to. And I think now perhaps there is more flexibility and understanding
Yeah.
with respect to that, and perhaps that will be something going forward because there is such an awareness of mental health issues
Right.
and
Yeah.
that sense of overwhelm that's real.
Yeah. One of the things I do in the morning, I also do a lot of gratitude work and journaling in the morning. And I have a list of a few things that I remind myself of every day. And one of them is the timeline that we're on is perfect, is the timeline that it needs to be. And so it is what it is, and it
Hmm.
is perfect. So if, I have expectations and I have frustrations, but those are all self-imposed, made up, arbitrary, you know,
Hmm.
things. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it is something I do remind myself every day. The timeline is perfect.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I love that.
yeah, yeah. I just want to thank you so much, Jennifer. I so enjoy chatting with you. You have so much grace and inspiration that yeah, I'm so grateful that you're here with us today.
I'm so excited that you've made me part of your remarkable Single Women Summit
Thank
again,
you.
and I just want to remind anybody who's watching, you are all remarkable. It's not the
Yeah,
fact that the two of us are here on the screen being remarkable. Everybody is remarkable, and so that's also something to not compare yourself to.
yeah, exactly. Where can people find you, Jennifer, if they want
Sure,
to follow
sure.
you, connect with you?
Yeah, I encourage everybody to take a look at humanistbeauty.com, as well as Humanist Beauty is our handle pretty much just everywhere, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Pinterest. And certainly you can look up the Human Beauty Movement too. If you just Google that, you'll be able to find us, or else it's at the-hbm.com.
Yeah, that's great. I encourage everybody to head to your website. I think last summit I was just mentioning it was just so beautiful. I just sat there and watched it for so long. It's such an amazing website. So thank you so much again for everything
Thank you,
that you're
Jana.
doing and all the light you're bringing to our audience and to everybody that you're working with.
Honored to do it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Okay, bye
Bye
bye.
bye.